Welcome everybody to this late night video from Stockholm, Sweden. It's 2 days until the long list of the National Book Award in the United States will be announced. National Book Award for fiction, of English written fiction. There are several rules for the prize, for the award, for books to be eligible, for authors to be eligible. Books have to be published between December 1 of 2022 and November 30 of 23. The authors must be US citizens, but there are some exceptions which make it quite difficult for somebody who wants to predict the long list, because the exceptions are that publishers can contact the foundation if they have authors they want to suggest that have lived in the United States for 10 years, that are currently applying for US citizenship, or if authors who consider themselves as US immigrant who are currently and actively engaged in pursuing citizenship, or authors who are legally unable to pursue traditional pathways to citizenship this time, they can also be eligible for the prize, but that is decided by the National Book Award Foundation. So I looked at the books that were published and will be published until the end of November of 2023. And I found a list of 10 books, which I hope is interesting to you and which I hope will at least get some points when the original long list is revealed this year. I read today breaking news from the National Book Book Award Foundation, that they wanted to have Drew Barrymore as host for the final award ceremony, which I think takes place in November, but they have now broke up sort of with Drew Barrymore. I haven't looked for the reason, I haven't read those articles yet. I will comment on this and speak about that in a later video. But now let's get to the 10 books that I think will make the list. It was difficult, really. The first one on my list is Chain Gang AllStars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah, published by Pantheon on May 2, 2023. This is about the two gladiators, two very strong women. It is a dystopia that plays in a near future in the United States. Loretta Thurwar and Hamara, quotation marks, Hurricane Stacks with 3 axes, Stacker. They are the stars of the Chain All-Star Gang, a gladiator show within the American prison system where the gladiators are fighting and competing for freedom or death. The blurb says it is a kaleidoscopic, excoriating look at the American prison system's unholy alliance of systemic racism, unchecked capitalism, and mass incarceration, and a clear-eyed reckoning with what freedom in this country really means. I had started reading this book a couple of weeks ago when I was on a holiday in Poland. I haven't finished it yet because I had to deliver it back to the library. I wasn't so thrilled by it, but that might be my problem with dystopias and also with gladiators and that stuff. But other people who have read this novel have described it as a very beautiful, timely novel. Writing about the prison system, I think, in the United States is very good. I read a couple of books, both fiction and non-fiction, in recent years. And I remember very well Rachel Kushner's The Moss Room, which is also a book about the prison system, about incarceration. And I learned a lot from a nonfiction book about how privatized the industry. It's an industry in the United States where a lot of big companies make big money by having people incarcerated in prisons. The second book on my list is a book I haven't seen yet. Is How to Care for a Human Girl by Ashley Wurzbacher, published by Atria Books on August 8, 2023. This is about two sisters who both get pregnant at the same time, more or less at the same time. Jada and Maddie Battle, that is their name. Jada is 30 years old. She's a PhD student, while 19-year-old Maddie spends her time caring for birds at a wildlife rehabilitation center. The sisters must navigate the consequences of their choices and determine how best to care for themselves and each other. How to Care for a Human Girl is a compassionate and unforgettable examination of the complexities of choice, the special intimacy of sisterhood, and the bizarre ways our heated political moment manifests in daily life. And I thought this very interesting as a novel about sisters, about the relationship between two sisters who are sort of 11 years away from each other. And it's also about pregnancy, motherhood, and about abortion, which is, well, since the decision of the Supreme Court last year, it is a very, very hot topic again in the United States. The third book on my list might be if the author of the third book on my list, if she wins the National Book Award, she would win it for the third time. I'm speaking about Jasmine Ward. She comes out with a new novel. It hasn't been published yet. On October 24 by Scribner. The novel is called Let Us Descend. Jasmine Ward, the author. She has won the National Book Award twice already. And I read her book, Sing Unburied Sing. This is again about slavery. This is about an enslaved girl in the years before the Civil War. It is a reimagining of American slavery, as beautifully rendered as it is heart-wrenching. A journey from the rice fields of the Carolinas to the slave markets of New Orleans and into the fearsome heart of a Louisiana sugar plantation. Annis, sold south by a white enslaver who fathered her, is the reader's guide through this landscape, through this hellscape. From one of the most singularly brilliant and beloved writers of her generation, this miracle of a novel inscribes Black American grief and joy into the very land. The rich but unforgiving forests, swamps, and rivers of the American South. Let Us Descend is Jasmine Ward's most magnificent novel yet, a masterwork for the ages, says the publisher, and I can't wait to read this new book by Jasmine Ward, which I think will make the long list, or should make the long list probably. The next one is on my Kindle. I have only read a few pages of it, but I will read it. This is by an author who was, a couple of years ago, one of the authors that the National Book Foundation picks every year as the 5 best authors under the age of 35. And very often authors from that list, 5 under 35, return as authors who are longlisted for the National Book Award or even win the award a couple of years later. Maybe she does it this time. I don't know. It's her second novel. I'm talking about Lydia Kiesling and her novel Mobility, which came out by Crooked Media Reads on August 1 in 2023. Plays both in Europe and in the United States. It is a propulsive novel about class, power, politics, and desire by the celebrated author of The Golden State. The year is 1998, the end of history. The Soviet Union is dissolved, the Cold War is over, and Bunny Glenn is an American teenager in Azerbaijan with her Foreign Service family. We follow Bunny from adolescence to middle age, from Azerbaijan to America, as the entwined idols of capitalism and ambition lead her to a career in the oil industry, and eventually back to the scene of her youth, where familiar figures reappear in an era of political and climate breakdown. Mobility is the propulsive and challenging story about class, power, politics, and desire, told through the life of one woman, moving between the local and the global, the personal and the political, and using fiction's power to illuminate the way a life is shaped by its context. In January of this year, January 24 actually, in 2023, Counterpoint published this book, which is the next on my long list. It is The Chinese Groove by Catherine Ma. It is about a young Chinese immigrant, Shally, who heads to San Francisco to claim his destiny, confident that any hurdles will be easily overcome by the awesome powers of the Chinese groove, a belief in the unspoken bonds between countrymen that transcend time and borders. Upon arrival, Shally is dismayed to find that his rich uncle is in fact his unemployed second cousin, once removed, and that the grand guest room he'd envisioned is but a crappy sofa. The indefinite stay he'd planned for, that has a firm 2-week expiration date. Even worse, the loving family he hoped would embrace him is in shambles, shattered by a senseless tragedy that has cleaved this family in two. They want nothing to do with this youthful bounder who's barged into their lives. Ever the optimist, though, Shally concocts a plan to resuscitate, beautiful word, to resuscitate his American dream by insinuating himself into the family. And who knows, maybe he'll even manage to bring them back together in the process. Funny and intelligent, The Chinese Groove by Catherine Ma. Could be on the long list, right? The next one was recommended to a couple of viewers of my channel. I have it on my windowsill there. On a windowsill, I hope so. It's inside my apartment. It's The Deluge by Stephen Markley, published by Simon & Schuster on January 2023. And this could be something that people like to call the great American novel, because it sounds like one of these great American novels. What is it about? It is a masterful epic, says the publisher, Simon & Schuster, charting a near future approaching collapse and a nascent but strengthening solidarity. Sorry for scratching my nose. In the first decades of the 21st century, the world is convulsing, its governments mired in gridlock, while a patient but unrelenting ecological crisis looms. Ecological crisis sounds that familiar. It's what we experience very often already in our days. America is in upheaval, battered by violent weather and extreme politics. In California in 2013, Tony Pietras, a scientist studying deposits of undersea methane, receives a death threat. His fate will become bound by a stunning cast of characters: a broken drug addict, a star advertising strategist, a neurodivergent mathematician, a cunning eco-terrorist, an actor-turned-religious zealot, and a brazen young activist named Kate Morris, who, in the mountains of Wyoming, begins a project that will alter the course of the decades to come. From the Gulf Coast to Los Angeles, the Midwest to Washington, D.C., their intertwined odysseys unfold against a stark backdrop of accelerating chaos as they summon courage, galvanize a nation, fall to their own fear, and find wild hope in the face of staggering odds. As their stories hurtle toward a spectacular climax, each faces a reckoning. What will they sacrifice to salvage humanity's last chance at a future? A singular achievement, The Deluge is a once-in-a-generation novel that meets the moment as few works of art ever have. Wow, what a lot of praise. I read Stephen Markley's first novel, Ohio, a few years ago, and I really was very impressed by that work about the generation of people born in the 1980s and coming back to their little town in the state of Ohio amidst the opioid crisis, amidst of shattered lives. A beautiful, great novel. And The Deluge is Stephen Markley's second work. It's about 850 pages long. That makes it quite an adventure to read. The next one is the only book that I read from beginning to the end, and I really hope that she makes the long list. I cross my fingers. I hold my thumbs, as we say in German. In English, you cross your fingers. This is The Guest by Emma Klein, published by Random House on May 16, 2023. A novel about a young woman, probably on Long Island, New York, in a very rich environment. She is selling her body, her youth, her attractiveness to older men. And at a party, she sort of behaves not too well. She embarrasses her current lover, who is like 30 years her senior, and he throws her out of the house. And she tries to stay on that island, wants to win him back. And we examine her life and the life on Long Island for the next week with her, and see all those souls and people in their richness, in their rich lives, and the young woman, the guest, as she's called, who always makes some stupid mistakes, desperately trying to give the only thing that she has, which is her young body, in order to survive, in order to live a decent life and sort of stay away from poverty. It's a great book about the sort of gaps that exist not only in America, but maybe as strong as in not many other countries in America. The Guest by Emma Klein, beautifully written novel. The because they always have stories, short stories in their collection. Usually there's always a short story collection among the 10 books that are longlisted. I picked The Last Catastrophe, stories by Allegra Heights, published by Vintage on March 28 this year. A vast caravan of RVs roam the United States. A girl grows a unicorn horn, complicating her small-town friendships and big city ambitions. A young lady on a spaceship bonds with her AI warden while trying to avoid an arranged marriage. In Allegra Heights' universe, nothing is as it seems. Yet the challenges her characters face mirror those of our modern age. Spanning the length of our very solar system, the 15 stories in this collection explore a myriad of potential futures, all while reminding us that our world is precious and that protecting it has the potential to bring us all together. I know many of you were huge fans of Brandon Tyler when he wrote his first novel. I wasn't, but now he comes with, I think, his third work already of fiction. This is called The Late Americans, published by Riverhead on May 23, 2023, and I think this one might very well make the long list. In the shared and private spaces of Iowa City, a loose circle of lovers and friends encounter, confront, and provoke one another in a volatile year of self-discovery. At the group's center are Ivan, a dancer turned aspiring banker who dabbles in amateur pornography; Fatima, whose independence and work ethic complicates her relationships with friends and a trusted mentor; and Noah, who didn't seek sex out so much as it came up to him like an anxious dog in need of affection. These three are buffeted by a cast of poets, artists, landlords, meatpacking workers, and mathematicians who populate the cafes, classrooms, and food service kitchens of Iowa City, sometimes to violent and electrifying consequences. Finally, as each prepares for an uncertain future, the group heads to a cabin to bid goodbye to their former lives, a moment of reckoning that leaves each of them irrevocably altered. And the last book on my long list for the National Book Award for Fiction of 2023 is a book about environment, about the situation of our planet, about climate change and the things that we have done to the planet and what we have to do in order to save it. But it plays in the past. This is also by an author. I think she has been longlisted already 4 or 5 times for the National Book Award. She hasn't won it yet, as far as I know. This is The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff, published by Riverhead on September 12th in 2023. That was yesterday from the day I make the video. This is a taut and electrifying novel from celebrated best-selling author Lauren Groff about one spirited girl alone in the wilderness trying to survive. A servant girl escapes from a colonial settlement in the wilderness. She carries nothing with her but her wits, a few possessions, and the spark of God that burns hot within her. What she finds in this terra incognita is beyond the limits of her imagination and will bend her belief in everything that her own civilization has taught her. Lauren Groff's new novel is at once a thrilling adventure story and a penetrating fable about trying to find a new way of living in a world succumbing to the churn of colonialism. The Vaster Wilds is a work of raw and prophetic power that tells the story of America in miniature, through one girl at a hinge point in history to ask how and if we can adapt quickly enough to save ourselves. And that completes the list, the long list, my prediction of the long list of the National Book Award. When I counted down, I had 15 books that I was thinking of presenting in this video. And I have, for example, 2 books that I want to mention that didn't make my prediction list. One is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I read that one and loved it, and I know that many of you loved it. It might very well make the long list, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And also I had another author that is very popular with the National Book Award and also with the Pulitzer Prize. Colson Whitehead has written a new novel that was published by Doubleday on July 18, The Crook Manifesto. That could also very well make the long list. Then Then Land of Milk and Honey by C. Pam Zhang, published by Riverhead on September 26, 2023, in 2 weeks from now on, could be a candidate for the long list. I also had a very famous author that might very well make it for the jury. That is Ann Patchett and her new novel Tom Lake, that was published by Harper on August 1 of 2023, and number 15 on this 50 list that I had, that I shorted down to the 10 that I presented in the beginning of this video, is another story collection by Jamal Brinkley, and this is Witness, published on August 1, 2023 by Farrar, Straus and Giroux. But I sort of go for the 10 that I presented in the beginning. And what are your predictions? Have you read any great American novel in the last year that you think should definitely make the long list of the National Book Award, or might even win it? Who's going to win? Who's going to be on the long list? Tell me all your opinions in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, slap a like, and I see you very soon in another beautiful and amazing video on this wonderful channel. And today I wish you everything good, everything fine. Read some pages in a good book, and have a good evening wherever you are all around the world. Bye.